The rain was coming down in sheets that Tuesday evening when Sarah Martinez pulled into Jake's auto repair with her heart pounding and her 5-year-old daughter Emma clutching a worn teddy bear in the back seat. Steam was billowing from under the hood of her 2008 Honda Civic and the engine was making a sound that could only mean expensive trouble. Sarah had exactly $43 in her checking account and payday wasn't for another week. As a single mother working 2 part-time jobs at a local diner and a grocery store just to keep their small apartment, she knew this moment could change everything for the worse. Jake Morrison was just about to lock up his garage for the night when he saw the old Honda limping into his parking lot. At 52 years old, Jake had been fixing cars for over 30 years and he could tell from the sound of the engine that this wasn't going to be a simple fix. He grabbed his jacket and walked out into the rain expecting another routine late-night repair job. What he didn't expect was to see a young woman step out of the car with tears streaming down her face and a little girl peering through the foggy back window with eyes that reminded him so much of his own daughter who had passed away 3 years earlier in a tragic accident. Sarah approached Jake with trembling hands and a voice that barely held together. She explained that she was on her way home from her evening shift at Murphy's Diner when the car started overheating and making terrible noises. She had managed to make it to his shop because it was the closest one she could find, but she was terrified about what it might cost to fix. Jake could see the desperation in her eyes, and when little Emma stepped out of the car and looked up at him with that same hopeful expression his late daughter Lily used to have when she believed her daddy could fix anything, his heart nearly broke right there in the parking lot. Jake popped the hood and immediately saw the problem. The radiator had a significant leak and the water pump was failing, which meant the engine had been running dangerously hot for who knows how long. In his professional opinion, this was at least a $600 repair, maybe more if there was additional engine damage from the overheating. He looked back at Sarah, who was biting her lip and trying to hold back more tears, while Emma stood beside her mother asking in her innocent 5-year-old voice if the nice man could make their car feel better. Something about that moment transported Jake back to the countless evenings when Lily would wait for him in this very garage asking the same kinds of questions about the cars he was working on. She had been so curious about everything, always wanting to help Daddy fix the broken things and make them work again. The memory of her laugh echoing through these walls hit him like a physical blow, and he knew he couldn't let this mother and daughter face this crisis alone. Jake told Sarah he would need to take a closer look in the morning when he had better light and asked if she had someone who could pick them up for the night. Sarah's face crumbled as she explained that her sister lived 2 hours away and she didn't have money for a taxi or rideshare service. She had been planning to call her neighbor Mrs. Patterson, who sometimes helped with Emma, but she felt embarrassed about asking for yet another favor when she had already borrowed so much help over the past few months. Without hesitation, Jake offered to drive them home himself and said he would have someone tow the car into his garage overnight so he could properly diagnose the problem first thing in the morning. During the 15-minute drive to their apartment, Emma chattered away from the back seat, telling Jake about her favorite colors and her stuffed animals and how her mommy worked really hard to take care of her. Sarah remained mostly quiet, but Jake could sense her overwhelming anxiety about the repair costs and what this setback might mean for their already tight budget. The next morning, Jake arrived at his shop 2 hours early and immediately got to work on Sarah's Honda. As he suspected, the damage was extensive but not irreparable. The radiator needed to be completely replaced along with the water pump and several hoses that had been damaged by the overheating. He spent the entire morning carefully removing the damaged parts and sourcing replacements from his inventory and trusted suppliers. By noon he had the car running like new again, purring quietly and maintaining perfect operating temperature. Jake had been wrestling with a decision all morning. He knew Sarah couldn't afford this repair, and he had seen enough struggling families over the years to recognize genuine need when he encountered it. His own financial situation wasn't perfect, but his business was stable and he had built up a comfortable savings account over the years. More importantly, he kept thinking about Emma's innocent face and how much she reminded him of Lily, who would have been about the same age now if she were still alive. When Sarah arrived that afternoon with Emma in tow expecting the worst possible news, Jake led them over to the car and turned the key. The engine started immediately with a smooth, quiet hum that sounded nothing like the tortured mechanical screaming from the night before. Sarah's eyes widened in disbelief and Emma clapped her hands together with pure joy, exclaiming that the nice man had made their car all better just like she knew he would. Jake handed Sarah the keys and told her the car was ready to go. When she asked about the bill and started reaching for her purse with obvious dread, Jake simply shook his head and said there would be no charge. Sarah stared at him in complete shock, unable to process what she was hearing. She insisted that he must let her pay something even if she had to make payment arrangements, but Jake firmly refused, explaining that sometimes people just need to help each other and this was one of those times. As Sarah stood there with tears of relief and gratitude streaming down her face, Emma tugged on Jake's work shirt to get his attention. When he knelt down to her level, she whispered something in his ear that made his own eyes fill with tears. She said that her mommy had been really sad lately because she worried about taking care of them all by herself, and she wished her mommy could find someone kind like her daddy had been before he went to heaven. Then in her innocent 5-year-old wisdom, Emma asked Jake if he might want to be her mommy's friend because she could tell he had a good heart just like her daddy used to have. Jake was completely overwhelmed by the child's pure honesty and insight. He looked up at Sarah, who had heard every word her daughter had whispered and was now crying even harder, but with a different kind of emotion mixed in with her gratitude. In that moment, Jake realized that his act of kindness had opened a door to something he never expected to find again after losing his wife and daughter. He had been living in isolation for 3 years, convincing himself that his chapter for love and family was permanently closed. Over the following weeks, Jake found himself thinking about Sarah and Emma constantly. He made excuses to stop by the diner where Sarah worked just to check on how the car was running, and gradually they began to develop a genuine friendship built on mutual respect and shared experiences of loss and resilience. Emma would light up whenever she saw Jake and always had new stories to share about school and her adventures with her beloved teddy bear. 6 months later, Jake officially asked Sarah on their first real date, and a year after that magical rainy evening when their lives first intersected, he proposed to both Sarah and Emma in his garage, surrounded by the cars and tools that had brought them together. Emma insisted on being the one to hold the ring box during the proposal because she said she had been the one who first recognized that Jake would be perfect for their little family. Today, Jake, Sarah and Emma Morrison are living proof that sometimes the most beautiful love stories begin with simple acts of kindness between strangers. Jake's auto repair shop has become known throughout their community as a place where people in genuine need can always find help and understanding. He and Sarah have started a small fund to help other struggling families with emergency car repairs because they know firsthand how a broken-down vehicle can represent the difference between stability and crisis for families living paycheck to paycheck. Emma, now 8 years old, still loves spending time in Daddy Jake's garage learning about engines and helping him organize his tools. She often tells people that her Daddy Jake fixed more than just their car that rainy night 3 years ago. He fixed their whole family and showed them that kindness really can change everything when it comes from a genuine heart that's willing to see beyond its own circumstances to help others in need. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to Pure Kindness Stories for more amazing tales of human compassion that will restore your faith in the goodness that exists all around us. Share this story with someone who needs to be reminded that unexpected kindness can appear in our darkest moments, often when we least expect it but need it most. Remember that each of us has the power to be someone else's miracle simply by choosing compassion over indifference and generosity over selfishness in the moments that matter most.